Earlier, I was saying that spontaneity is a strong principle, in contrast to the way that we generally tend to think about it as being something that's a bit fluffy or a bit airy-fairy. Spontaneity we link with maybe writing poetry or just doing something frivolously on the spur of the moment, just being spontaneous, that kind of thing. We don't at all see spontaneity as being something more of an implacable force that we're absolutely powerless to manipulate in any way. On the contrary, what we think is strong is purposefulness. Even saying that sounds strong. When I say the word purposeful, that really sounds strong. It sounds purposeful. When people have a purposeful expression on their face, it's like, whoa, this person knows where they're going, they know what they're doing. There's serious intent here. And that seems strong, understandably. But it isn't actually as strong. It isn't actually strong at all. And the reason it's not strong is because whenever we find ourselves in this position that we know where we're going and we know what we're doing, i.e. we have a clear-cut, definite goal or destination, the problem with that is that the clear-cut goal or destination doesn't exist anywhere but in our thoughts, in our picture of the world, in our map of the world. It certainly doesn't exist out there in the world. Destinations don't exist in the world. You could go all over the place. You could explore all the continents. You could look high and low. You won't find any destinations. And the reason you won't find any destinations is because destination is a kind of a loaded word. It carries a freight of assumptions that we don't look at. For a destination to be a destination, that means there must be someone who wants to get there, for example. You can't have a destination on its own. So there we have the assumption of the traveller straight away. So really, when we talk about the destination, we're talking about the traveller, because destinations don't make any sense when divorced from the one who's heading towards a destination. And we might think, well, what's wrong with that? That's fair enough, but that doesn't make any difference really, because the destination is real and the one who seeks the destination is real. So what's the problem? But the destination is a projection. I project the destination. Obviously, the destination is my mind. I project this particular limit, which I call my destination. I make it be out there in my imagination, and I aim for it, even though it's not out there, because the real world doesn't have anything to do with my ideas about it, or what I want out of it, how I wish to utilize it or exploit it, or more essentially, it doesn't have anything to do with this system of meanings that I put upon it that are essentially just me. The real world doesn't have anything to do with me. It exists in itself. It has nothing to do with me and what I hope to achieve or hope to avoid. And this is the one thing we don't see, because we get so hopelessly confused with our projections that it becomes hard to see that actually I've just brought myself into everything. And so when I think I'm talking about the real world, I'm talking about myself. And similarly, we could object and say, well, what's wrong with me talking about myself? To me, myself is quite important after all. It's kind of where I'm coming from. So why shouldn't I talk about myself? And have goals and destinations and so on. But the thing about it is that this myself is really just another feature of my theory of the world. In my theory of the world, there is me. That's fine, but it's only my theory of the world, my theory of the world. In other words, it's a construct of thought. So when we talk about me, we're talking about a construct of thought. But and it might seem subjectively very, very real, but that's because we believe our thoughts. We totally believe our thoughts. Our thoughts are what create the world for us. This doesn't mean that our thoughts create the world, because the world wasn't created in that way, unless you happen to be a fundamentalist Christian. Then you say, well, God created the world, so what are you talking about? How dare you say that the world wasn't created? That's a bit presumptuous of you. But the thing is, we created this idea of God, and then we said that God created it. So really, God is a creation of thought in the way that a fundamentalist religious person thinks about God. Because if I am a fundamentalist, then I think about God in a very concrete way. Like God is a concept, a clear-cut concept. It's an actual thing. And because it's an actual thing, a clear-cut concept, that means it's my mind, it's my thinking. So like Krishnamurti says, when we go on and on about God in this way, and when we talk about worshipping God in this particular way, this conceptual way, in the way that the concrete identity does, really we're worshipping the constructs of thought. And since our idea of ourselves, my idea of myself, is a construct of thought, thought is worshipping thought, which is a different thing entirely. There's nothing mystical or holy about that. It's kind of that's a kind of low down kind of a thing. It's narcissism. It's going round in circles. Thought saying how great thought is no different from some gobshite saying how great he is. It's no different at all. So when we see that, we can see that the goals that we take so much for granted only make sense in terms of the goal seeker, and the goals are a construct of thought, just as the goal seeker is. It's all this map that we carry around in our heads and that we unfold and we spread it all over the world. So having done this, having unfolded the map or the theory, and the theory is where the destination comes from, and the seeker or the journeyer or the traveller who's going to the destination, all those are marks on the map. They're all parts of the theory. So that when we talk about purposefulness, which sounds so powerful, serious, and we're kind of in awe of it, it's not really that. It's not really what we take it for, because all it is, purposefulness, is me as my relationship with my own projections, my own goals, my own ideas about what I want to happen. And the relationship of me, since how I understand myself to be, the me I understand me to be, is a construct of thought. Here we have a construct of thought relating to another construct of thought. And that doesn't go anywhere. That's a kind of a trick. It's not a real thing. It's a loop. It's a loop of illusion. There aren't any destinations in the world. There's only the world. There aren't any goals in the world. And so when I say that I'm purposeful because I know where I'm going, or I know what I want, I don't know anything. I'm just projecting my thoughts on the world, and I'm not realizing that that's what I'm doing. I don't know anything about the world. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's out there. I don't know what's a destination and what's not a destination. It's all much of a muchness. If I say, well, that's a destination, that's just me saying it. It's not really a destination. So I might think I know what it is because I've made a concept for it. That's just me making a concept for it. Or I've made a destination of it, and that's just me making a destination. That's just my own blabber. Take away the blabber, and what's left, I don't know what it is. So I can't be purposeful towards it. Because I can't be purposeful unless I know what my purpose is. So although purposefulness seems like a mighty thing, something that we should aspire to, being purposeful, and people do say things like this, that a good life is a purposeful life. You have to be purposeful all the time, from when you wake up to when you go to bed. Every little moment I'm being purposeful. What's my next purpose? I've achieved this purpose, and now I'm going on to my next purpose, and there's another purpose after that. All these purposes, and I'm so purposeful. I know what I'm doing. I'm focused. I'm tuned in. That's not a good way to live life. Obviously, that's utter nonsense. What kind of pure tomfoolery is that? I'm not interested in reality at all, if that's the way I am. I couldn't give a damn about reality. Completely indifferent to it, and I don't even know that I don't give a damn about it, or that I'm indifferent to it. I have no relationship with reality. The only relationship I have is with my goals, my purposes, which means the only relationship I have is with my own projections, which means my only relationship is with myself. So I'm a narcissist. I'm a solipsist. I'm in my own private bubble that has nothing to do with reality, and yet I think I'm getting somewhere or doing something great. So that's purposefulness. It has its place, but not as a modality of existing. We can do purposeful things, but we can't live the purposeful life without living an illusion, because ultimately there is no purpose, and there's no goal, and there's no one who seeks the goal. And that might seem negative, but it isn't. All that means is that we're free from the wretched theory of the thinking mind, which wants everything to be part of its theory. And if something isn't part of its theory or its map, we think that's negative, or we think that's, what do you mean there's no purpose to life? How can you say such a thing? Of course there is. But all we're doing, we're just going beyond thought in its wretched categories. So it's thought which is the nihilistic thing, the life-denying thing, not the view of life which says that life is essentially purposeless. That's not nihilistic at all. It's liberating, as Alan Watts says. The only life that is really life is the purposeless life. We don't know where we're going. Do you know what our destination is? Of course we don't know what our destination is. If we think we know what our destination is, we're fooling ourselves. So it's to live in a purposeless way like that is to not be living a life that's based on illusions and delusions, and chief amongst which is the illusion of the self-construct, who I think I am, because who I think I am is just a crummy, crappy little concept of the thinking mind. It's just like if society says, you are this role, And then we go, oh, great, that's who I am. I was wondering who I was. Now I know, and isn't it great? We get excited about that, and we feel good to be given a role that we think we are. If it's a good role, I mean, if society doesn't say you're a deviant or a loser or criminal or whatever, that's not so good. Unless we want to be a deviant, because we might do. But to accept some identity that's been given to us, it isn't great. It's incredibly limiting. Just as we don't know what the world is or what life is, because what we do know is only our own mental projection. Similarly, we don't know who we are, because what we do think we know is simply the projection of our thoughts. It's just a category that we've climbed into. And it's no fun living life on the basis of a category. It's an arbitrary thing, it's a game, it's a made-up thing. So spontaneity is different. So spontaneity, in a way, we could say it's our relationship with the actual reality, which is totally uncertain. So it's not a serious, purposeful relationship, which really means I'm trying to exploit the world to try and get what I think is good for me to get. I've got this idea that it's something I can get and I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to exploit the world or other people or life. That's what purposeful means. But that's kind of a jackass kind of a thing to do, because I don't even know what's good for me and I don't know who I am. So that's got to be nonsense in the end. So in spontaneity, it's not like I'm trying to achieve anything, or it's not like there's some kind of concrete idea of the person there who wants to achieve it and then be the winner. It's kind of an exploratory movement. It's a free movement, a movement that is free from all concepts and all agendas. And as Krishnamurti says, that's the only type of movement there is, the movement that's free from concepts and agendas. That's the only type of movement there is. There is no movement within the realm of thought. The realm of thought is a static thing. It has no movement in it. It cannot facilitate movement. It cannot acknowledge movement. It cannot have any movement in it. So if we see that, we can say, okay, spontaneity, wow, that's great. I'm escaping the thinking mind with its static pictures of everything that aren't even real. So that's great. But when we truly get into the spontaneous mode, we find that although we can say that it's great, or that it's liberating or freeing, or any number of things like that, we can say it is. But we find we've been stripped of our frames of reference, or our point of reference. In other words, we can say that it's great, but we can't say who it's great for, because we've lost that arbitrary point of reference. And that kind of takes the wind out of our sails, because we want for it to be great. But the subtext there, or the hidden agenda there, is that, well, I want it to be great for me. I don't want it just to be great. I want for it to be great for me personally. I want to be in that equation. And so that's where we lose our interest in spontaneity, because we discover that when we go into this mode, it's not what we thought it would be. We have to leave an awful lot of baggage behind, and we're attached to that baggage. And we're more than just attached to that baggage. We are the baggage that we don't want to leave behind. We identify with the baggage, therefore it's us. So maybe we don't like spontaneity so much. So in this case, well, we'll still talk about it, but we'll trivialize it so much we won't see it for what it really is. And we'll just talk about spontaneity as if it's like when we just say, oh, the hell with it, I'm just going to do something off the top of my head. Let's do something totally different. So that's what spontaneity means for us, or some equally trivialized version of it. It doesn't mean living in the world as in a way that is not based on thought. So in other words, thought thinks it can play with spontaneity and have a little bit of it just to make its wretched, tedious, goal-orientated, super purposeful existence a little bit more interesting, because it sure as hell needs something to make it more interesting. Like if you go around every day being purposeful the whole time, you'll get so fed up with yourself and your stupid purposes. Maybe it'll take a while, but you will get very fed up with it. If I go around being concerned with nothing but my purposes, that means I'm fundamentally dislocated from life and fundamentally insincere, because I'm always doing everything for a purpose. I am doing everything because of how it relates to some idea that I have, or some construct, how it relates to some construct of my mind. So I'm working for my mind. I'm never a free agent. And even though we do see purpose, spontaneity as being an admirable kind of a thing that we'd like to get more of, we don't really get it. Because spontaneity is kind of more like when everything happens, or when life happens, but without regard to a point of reference. So it's when life happens, but it's not happening to anyone, as the non-dualists say. So life is happening, and that's like, wow, life is happening. But I want it to be happening to me. I don't want life just to be, I want it for me to be in there. And so I do that. I personalize everything and make it all to be happening to me. And then I get trapped in the tediousness of that self-referential circuit or loop. Okay, thanks for watching.